What have I done?
My allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy!
Your powers are weak, old man.
I have a bad feeling about this.
When the time comes, he must be trained.
Like you trained his father?
Hello there.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 6 of Kenobi Cast, the final episode of Kenobi Cast, unless they bring back a season 2. But of course, my name is Bryant, and joined with me tonight is...
Always Robbie Rice.
And Brendan, as per usual.
It's been 6 episodes, and I feel like we have grown. We've come to learn things about each other. I have a weird obsession about Force ghosts that I did not know about until you guys brought it. And I also learned that Robbie has an excellent Watto impression.
I listened back to it because I didn't even realize that I could do it that well. But when I listened back to the podcast, I was like, oh my God, that was really good. Little Annie.
So much so that I think it's perfect time to announce that following Kenobi Cast, our next series is going to be Watto Cast.
Yep.
Where it's just going to be 24/7 Watto podcasts. Nothing but just Watto news. Everything you're looking for.
We're going to call it Water Around the World.
Today I'm in India. Taj Mahal!
Yes!
And we also learned that Brendan is very attuned with the dark side in this podcast.
Very, very attuned.
I'm just very attuned into everything.
Uh-huh.
I'm kind of a genius, honestly.
I know. A lot of the things you guys predicted happened in this episode, and I'm very excited to jump into it. So let's start off. We open up to Tatooine, where Reva is looking for Owen, and it kind of comes to the realization that, you know, not all is well in the world of the Skywalkers, as Reva is seeking revenge after the newly found information that she discovered on the planet.
Can I tell you that immediately once it showed her on Tatooine, I was like, oh, nope, there's no season 2. Like, I had made the prediction that the very end of the episode, she was going to be stepping foot on Tatooine. As soon as, like, first scene she was on, I was like, oh, nope, I was wrong.
She got there, like, real quick. Everyone else was, like, still in space where they were left off in the last one, and she somehow got off that planet, into a ship, and to Tatooine.
Well, I definitely think that there's a conversation of time in this episode, because there's a point where Kenobi transports directly into Tatooine in a matter of seconds, and I was just like, wow, that's convenient.
Hyperspeed, bro.
After this moment, we go into space, kind of what Brendan was talking about, and Vader is still pursuing Kenobi. Roken tells the crew and the rebels and all the resistance members that the hyperdrive is almost ready, and they're going to be heading to a planet called Tessin, yet Obi-Wan sees straight through this, and he's like, hey, we're not going to make it to Tessin, are we? And Roken's like, nope, we're definitely not. And then we get this really sweet moment where Leia is using Lola to help calm down the passengers. And Leia's like, you know, they're scared, so I was trying to take their mind off of it. And Obi-Wan says to her, well, maybe I should borrow Lola too, which I thought was kind of very revealing of where Obi-Wan's at in this series.
It's also showing Leia's leadership, just even at a young age, that in a time where a little kid might be super scared that they're going to die, she was going around trying to calm everybody else down. So just shows you who she's going to become someday.
Who's she become?
Padme.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's impressive.
What kind of question is that, Brian?
It kind of looks like Padme, I gotta say.
Who does Princess Leia become? Oh, I don't know.
General Organa.
I've never seen the movies after. I've just been lying this entire time. I'm more of a Star Trek fan, guys.
Fair enough.
So then we get a moment that I didn't think we were gonna get, but we get our first look at, like, Luke Skywalker, and he's kind of talking. I mean, we saw him kind of flying the hut in the beginning of the series, and we saw him sleeping, but he's actually interacting, talking, and Luke and Owen are looking for parts for a broken speeder, and the shopkeeper comes in and he's like, hey, Owen, we need to talk, and he alerts them that Reva is searching for Owen and Luke.
I find it interesting that she, like, showed up, and you could tell she was kind of weak, because obviously she'd been stabbed in the stomach. But she just, like, interrogated a guy and let him go. I just thought it was
She's
odd.
got more important things to do right now. She's
but,
gotta
like,
go kill a kid.
The whole series, she's just been cutting down people left and right for, like, smaller instances, like, for less of a reason. And now she's, like, trying to find somebody, and then he clearly tells her where to find them. And then she lets him go so he can go warn them.
So this was something that we left off in the last episode, and after we talked about it, I still am super confused. Do you think she knows that these are Anakin's kids? Or is it just like these kids are connected to Obi-Wan, so I'm going to hurt them?
I think she knows because of the end of the last episode. I don't think she knew before that. but I think she had a very clear picture in her mind of what she was going to Tatooine for.
To get revenge on Anakin by killing his kid.
Yeah.
Oof, that's dark.
I was really trying to think about how, if that was the case, and obviously at the end of the episode we'll talk about it, but yeah, we'll put a little pin in that one.
Yeah. From there, we jump back into space, and Obi-Wan kind of volunteers to sacrifice himself as a diversion in order to give all the refugees and the rebels a fighting chance. Leia is clearly upset by this, and Obi-Wan's like, hey, Haja, whatever happens, I need you to promise me that you'll take her to Alderaan. From there, we jump back to Tatooine. This episode is super jumpy. We jump from planet to planet, so apologies if you guys are listening. It's not the way that we're telling it. This is literally just how the episode happened. We jump back to Tatooine. Owen informs Beru that Reva is coming, and Beru is a gangster. Did not know this. She pulls out a hidden stash of guns that they just have laying in their house, and she's like, well, we knew this day was coming, and we're gonna fight her off.
Can I tell you that I was really concerned when she was opening up that little panel that they were gonna pull out, like, lightsabers, and it turns out they were part of the Jedi Order at some point? Like, I was like, they better not do something stupid like that.
Could you imagine the rage of the internet?
I literally thought that's what was happening, like, just the way the scene was playing out and stuff, and then when she pulled out, like, little blaster rifle, I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, thank God. Obi-Wan is saying goodbye to Leia at this moment. She's mad because she's like, you promised me that you would take me home, and Obi-Wan's like, I wish I could have. Obi-Wan then gives her Tala's holster, and he says she would have wanted you to have this. And Leia responds back in typical Leia fashion, where she's like, it's empty. And Obi-Wan's like, I'm not going to give you a blaster, Leia. You're 10 years old.
I laughed super hard at that part. I don't know why, but it just made me laugh so hard that all the things she could have chosen to say, she just said, it's empty. Like, it was great.
Yeah. Then they hug, they have this sweet moment, and Obi-Wan is off to face his old apprentice. Obi-Wan is sitting in this drop ship, and he has this last-minute speech to Qui-Gon. And he's like, Master, if you're there, please, I have to face him. Whether he dies or I do, this is ending today. And I had this realization, and I don't know if we talked about this in the previous episode, but up until this moment, Obi-Wan still believes that Anakin is meant to bring balance to the Force. Like, Qui-Gon says you need to take care of the boy because he's the one, and Obi-Wan's kind of been respecting that. And this is almost as this moment where he's basically saying to Qui-Gon, like, Master, I've done everything I can, but at this moment, I'm going to break my promise to you, and I'm going to kill this kid.
Huh. Yeah. Okay, I guess I never really thought about it like that. That's really what Qui-Gon's last words were to make sure he was trained and everything, and at this point Obi-Wan does feel like a complete failure because he just feels like, he even said it in the third movie where he's like, I have failed you, Anakin, I have failed you. And he just feels responsible for Anakin turning to the dark side, I feel like.
As any master would in that scenario.
I mean,
Padawan turns evil and kills a bunch of people. It's like, did I do something wrong here?
Right, yeah.
God, there's so much I want to talk about that we
should
haven't even got to yet.
He's like, should I have let him win that little sparring match we did?
Yeah. So Vader now sees the escape pod, and he knows that Kenobi is on it. And we're given this really cool moment where the Grand Inquisitor is like, yes, Kenobi's on that ship, but we also have the Resistance, all the refugees, and everyone who's running the path on this ship. We can't just let one lone Jedi take our vision away from this. If we take care of this and we blow up this ship, we'll have won. And Vader's like, this is not just one lone Jedi. And
he's
Vader,
like, yeah, fuck that.
Yeah, Vader gives in to his rage, and they follow Kenobi. And I had this realization while I was watching it. I was like, man, if they would have just blown up that ship, A New Hope wouldn't have happened. Empire Strikes Back wouldn't have happened. Rogue One wouldn't have happened. It would just been a completely different story.
I mean, yeah. I was kind of shocked at how long that little ship was holding up against all these blaster shots by the.
Why didn't Vader
Star
just
Destroyer.
get in his ship and follow Obi-Wan himself?
What do you mean?
And just
Never
tell
mind.
the big ship to follow
lazy
the other
riding. Yeah, but whatever.
That's a good point. He could have just told the big ship to follow them, and he was just like, I'm going to go take care of him.
Maybe his ship doesn't have hyperdrive.
Yeah, maybe.
Lazy writing. Terrible. What is this, Game of Thrones? God, it sucks.
Things will never know.
So back on Tatooine, Owen and Beru are having like this pep talk with Luke, and they're like, we're gonna hide you in this room. Tusken Raiders have been raiding at night, and you need to stay hidden, but if something goes wrong, you need to run. And Luke seems like this is pretty much business as usual on the planet of Tatooine. And we then go back to this random planet, which I don't think they ever name, which is kind of cool because there's like mystery surrounding it. We don't know where it is. We've never seen it before. Obi-Wan lands on the planet and Vader basically says, prepare my ship. I'm going to face him alone. Obi-Wan then takes off his robe and he finds out that Leia gave him Lola in order to kind of calm his fears, which is a nice little like tie back to like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. Honestly, when I thought he landed at first, I thought it was Dagobah. And I was like, oh shit, we're going to see Yoda. He's going to come out of nowhere.
That would have been epic.
Can you imagine? He's just sitting there watching.
Yeah. Where is Grogu at this stage?
Who knows?
Is Mandalorian before or after this?
It's after Return of the Jedi, so
okay.
It's technically after the 6th movie.
Gotcha.
Episode 6.
Back on Tatooine, Reva arrives at Owen's farm, and it's this really menacing moment where she like busts out her lightsaber, and we're like, oh god, she's gonna kill these people. Then we jump back to this random planet. Vader lands, and he confronts Obi-Wan, and they're standing face to face in this really cool like Western shootout style shot, and he's like, you've come to destroy me, Obi-Wan. And Obi-Wan says, I will do what I must, and he strikes his signature General Kenobi pose, and shit's about to go down. We get the lightsaber fight that we've all been waiting for. Vader is at full force, Obi-Wan is at full force, and I could not have been more thrilled by the way that this lightsaber fight turned out.
I shouted, once again, sitting on my couch when he did his little Form 3, whatever it's called. I forget what the fighting form's called, Soresu or something like that.
Okay.
But when he threw up the little 2 fingers, and I was like, oh shit, it's going down! And I love that. I just love that so much. And he was like, let's go. This is it. End all be all right now.
It was good. It was a very enjoyable cinematic sequence to watch that.
And I feel like it was almost full circle to the entire story, right? Like before Obi-Wan was afraid, but now he's like fully attuned with the Force. And we kind of get this even match, this rematch from Mustafar that we saw in episode 3. Back on Tatooine, Reva gets attacked by Owen and Beru, and we get like this blaster lightsaber fight, and just all chaos is going on at Owen's farm. Back on the planet with Obi-Wan and Vader, the lightsaber fight continues. Obi-Wan is force-pulling rocks and boulders onto Vader, and Vader makes a comment that says, your strength has returned, but your weakness still remains, alluding to the fact that even though Obi-Wan is fully attuned with the Force, he still will not finish the job and kill Anakin. Vader begins to force push Obi-Wan off a cliff and basically slams boulder after boulder after boulder on Obi-Wan, burying him on this planet. And Vader assumes that Obi-Wan is dead and says, did you think you could beat me? You have failed, Master, and basically walks away.
I really felt like it would have been much more appropriate as he was standing above him to be like, it's over, Obi-Wan. I have the high ground.
That's what I was thinking in that exact scene.
Really hoping he would have said that. And
who has the high ground now, bitch?
Yeah.
I do.
I do. Try it. I'll cut your limbs off.
So Reva and Owen are kind of having this fight, which I thought was really kind of silly. That like she clearly has a lightsaber out, and maybe Owen's never seen a lightsaber before, but he pulls a pipe like to protect himself, and like Reva cuts straight through it, and she's like, you love this boy and you protect him like he's your own. And Owen says, he is my own. And Reva basically says, I just want justice. And she force pushes Owen, and he falls off this bridge and like looks like he like injures his leg, which I thought was kind of cool because like in the original movies, Owen has like a limp, right? Or am I just imagining that?
No, he definitely does.
Okay.
You're not imagining it.
Yeah, so like this was kind of like a cool little tie-in that I was like, oh, they're kind of explaining how Owen gets that limp in the first movie, and I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool way to tie that in. Owen then tells Beru she's coming. Beru smacks her across the face, tells Luke to run. Luke then runs off into the Dune Sea, and Reva is pursuing. Back on the planet of Unknown, Obi-Wan is buried under the rubble, and he's using the Force to kind of create like a barrier around him and protect himself. He begins to have flashbacks of everything that's happened between him and Anakin, and then he sees visions of Luke and Leia and goes full Kamehameha and just pushes the rubble off of him and just starts running after Vader. Vader's starting to walk back to his ship. Kenobi sneaks up behind them, pulls out the lightsaber. Obi-Wan's right behind him, like, surprise! And just the lightsaber fight continues. And Obi-Wan is completely just Jedi master at this moment. X Games mode, force pushing Vader, becoming an earthbender, lifting rocks out of the planet and just throwing and pummeling them on Vader. One of the coolest like Jedi moments I think that I've seen in the Star Wars whole entire cinematic universe.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's the coolest I've ever seen Obi-Wan, but yeah, I mean, you really compare it to other Jedi. Yeah, it definitely was a very awesome moment, and I liked the transition of him essentially being crushed, and just you could tell his mind was just full of thoughts of Anakin and him and how he failed him and everything, and then it's almost like he started having this realization of everything he's done for Leia and Luke and to protect them and to be there, and he's essentially their last chance, and that's just what gave him that internal strength to kind of shut out the negative and go after Vader again. And when he was just laying into him with those rocks, it was just awesome. He just has his hands open, just like, oh, it was just such an awesome scene. He beat the shit out of the beep boop bop box too.
Yeah, he did.
With the back
I
of
do
the
want to
saber.
make a comment on something you just said, because I didn't really put that two and two together, but it was almost like Obi-Wan was like, I may have failed with Anakin, but there's still hope with Luke and Leia, and they gave him like new inspiration or new life. I didn't think about that until you just mentioned that.
Yeah, that's how I took it, just because of the sequences of the scenes that it was showing and everything. But I mean, Vader was still right. I mean, he couldn't kill him because every time he could have absolutely stabbed Vader with the other side of the lightsaber multiple times, but he kept hitting him with the butt of the saber against his breathing apparatus, and he kept hitting him with that. It was crazy because he just would not deal the killing blow.
It was kind of crazy because growing up, I always assumed like Yoda was the strongest and most powerful Jedi in the Star Wars like universe, I guess. But after seeing this, I was like, no man, Obi-Wan's the man. Like,
no way.
I never saw Yoda just summon rocks and pummel people with it.
Yoda would destroy him.
You think so?
Oh yeah.
Then why did he run to Dagobah and leave Obi-Wan?
Because he felt responsible, just like Obi-Wan ran away. He felt responsible, but he didn't have this conflict bringing him back to light. Plus, he was old as shit, so he was like, I don't need this. I'm over it. I failed.
I'm gonna go collect my
Sorry,
Social Security.
Jedi. Yeah.
So we kind of talked about it. He starts punching the life out of Vader's chest box or whatever he is, and then does like a Superman punch slice, and it just cuts the Vader's mask directly in half. And we get, in my opinion, the greatest scene of the show. Obi-Wan then sees Anakin's face through Vader's mask, and he says, Anakin. And Vader's voice is like, because his voice box is damaged, we're getting half Anakin, half Vader, and Vader says, Anakin is gone. I am what remains. Obi-Wan then says, I'm sorry, Anakin, for all of this. And Vader goes, I was not your failure. You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker, I did. The same way I will destroy you. Obi-Wan then has a realization, and he says, then my friend is truly dead. Goodbye, Darth. Instead of saying goodbye, Anakin, he realizes Anakin's gone. Any hope that I have of saving this guy is done. This is a new person. This is Darth. And he just basically walks away, leaving Vader on the ground, just shouting Obi-Wan in this. Man, I'd never thought that you could make the Vader voice more epic than like the James Earl Jones breathing. But when they did like half Anakin, half Vader, I was like, this is the coolest scene I've ever seen in Star Wars.
Oh God, man. I'm literally reliving it as you were telling it. You did such a good job just recapping all of it right there, because I literally was just sitting here screaming inside because it was just so good. And you're exactly right with that combination of the voice between Anakin and Vader and it cutting in and out, and you get a little bit of James Earl Jones and a little bit of Hayden Christensen, and like it really was just melding those two together into, oh God, it was just so good. And when he was just screaming at him, and it literally tied up so many things with Obi-Wan's story to Luke and A New Hope, where he's telling him that, you know, his father was killed by, you know, Darth Vader and everything, and it just really tied all that together. And I'm also wondering what you guys feel when Anakin's saying, I'm not your failure, you didn't kill him, I killed Anakin. Like, do you think that's more Anakin trying to do one last good thing for his master? Like, hey, don't worry about it, this wasn't you, this was all me? Or is he just that proud that he's like, I'm nobody's failure, I'm my own person, you can't, this isn't I'm not your failure. I'm me. I did everything my own because I know what I'm doing.
Definitely the second one, for sure.
All right, fair
Anakin
enough.
was always proud. I mean, even in that scene that we got in the last episode with them doing the training, like he wouldn't give in no matter what. He kept telling Obi-Wan to forfeit. Like,
Yeah.
I absolutely think he's too proud to be considered a failure of a Jedi. Like, he, in his mind, he chose to become a Sith. And
So he doesn't want anybody to
he
feel
didn't
that way.
fail.
Like, I don't want anybody thinking I'm Obi-Wan's failure. I'm Anakin. I'm Darth Vader.
yeah, I killed Anakin, not Obi-Wan.
Got it.
Yeah, I just echo what Brendan said right there, man. I think it's just pride that he's like, no, stop thinking of me as a failure. I'm literally ruling the galaxy. Like, I'm greater than anyone. I'm greater than any Jedi could have ever become.
Even though you just whooped my ass, I'm better than anybody out here.
Hey, can you hand me my inhaler?
I think it was you, Brian, that sent us a video that kind of was Obi-Wan retelling the story to Luke about Darth Vader and everything, and it kind of kept cutting like back and forth between Obi-Wan's story and like video of, you know, the first 3 episodes and stuff of Anakin growing up, and so I feel like it just tied it in really well, like, because it was always that question of like, all right, well, episode 3 happened, he turned into Darth Vader, but nothing has happened since then. He's just Darth Vader now. So I think this was really good in between of bridging that story gap, and so I feel. Plus, Disney, okay, has made Darth Vader way more badass than he ever was before.
Agreed.
Like, as soon as Disney took over, they just have finally given Darth Vader, like, his, I don't even know what to call it, recognition? Like,
Comeuppance.
Just comeuppance. It just made him a badass, man.
Brendan, I'm curious, as a kind of a Darth Vader stan, how do you break down this final scene?
I mean, it was sad to see my boy like that, but, you know, knowing what happens in the future is a blessing and a curse, because it's like, obviously neither one of them is going to kill each other in this episode, but something had to happen to get Obi-Wan away, and I think that to make it make sense for what happens in the 4th movie when they meet again, Obi-Wan had to win this fight.
That's what we talked about. I mean, even in the 4th movie, he says, last time we met, you were the master, and now I am. So it's like, we all kind of called it. We all kind of knew that Obi-Wan was going to win this fight. But I think the way they did it was almost appropriate, especially with, you know, Obi-Wan telling him you're always going to be a Padawan. Like, just rubbing that in. And I mean, some people even argue that the fight in A New Hope, Obi-Wan still won because it allowed him to become that Force ghost. Right?
If you strike me
Force
down,
Ghost?
I'll become stronger,
Exactly.
more powerful,
More
than ever
powerful
before.
than you can ever imagine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he
Yeah,
does
but
help
that's-
Luke and everything.
That's just a huge lie, because Anakin becomes a Force ghost too.
Only after Luke saves him.
It doesn't matter, still gets it.
Yeah.
Therefore, Anakin's still more powerful than Obi-Wan.
Mm.
Maybe not right now, because maybe he's just not used to his new little body, but
You know, in the beginning of this, when Robbie was like, when Reva showed up on Tatooine, he's like, oh, we're not getting a second season. This moment in this fighting scene, I was like, we better get a freaking second season.
There's no way. There's
Oh.
no way.
Oh my god, dude. After seeing Obi-Wan just go so ham and just get his force powers back, I'm like, yeah, just give me a second season. I don't care what happens. I want more of this. We don't even need Vader and Obi-Wan to come across each other again in the future. Just give me more Obi-Wan stories. Just what
No
happens
way.
in these next
No
10
way.
years.
They would screw up everything. They would screw up so much. There's so little you could do without screwing up the story.
see, I'd like them to go back in the past and give me more Anakin and Obi-Wan stories together.
Watch Clone Wars.
That's true.
Well, I know there's a lot of Anakins. There's a lot of Obi-Wan in the Clone
Oh,
Wars.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's in it just as much.
Every Jedi that you've come to love in the Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith are pretty much the main characters of the Clone Wars.
Guess I do need to put that on my list of things to watch.
Well, we'll be touching on that a little bit later.
Stay tuned for Clone Wars cast!
Yeah. Before we jump into that, back on Tatooine, Reva is hunting down Luke through the
Oh, yeah,
kind of the valleys, and she basically force pulls Luke down to the ground, and he hits his head on the ground, knocking him unconscious. Kenobi immediately senses this from space and jumps into hyperspeed and basically goes to Tatooine. Reva is about to kill an unconscious Luke, but then immediately she sees her child self lying there where Luke is laying, and she gets a flashback to Vader, Order 66, and she's about to swing, and then immediately the scene changes and Obi-Wan arrives on Tatooine, and we don't know whether or not she's going to kill him. Obi-Wan arrives on Owen's farm, and Kenobi's like, where is he? And they're like, well, he ran off into the Dune Sea, and Obi-Wan's like, okay, great, I'll go look for him. Immediately then, we see Reva walking towards the farm, carrying the lifeless body of Luke, and she killed him. And she ruined canon forever, because Luke Skywalker is now dead. Just kidding. She puts Luke's body down on the ground. Luke gasps for air, and Reva couldn't kill him. Reva begins to cry. Obi-Wan consoles her, and she's like, I couldn't do it. I failed them. Speaking of her fellow Padawan, and Obi-Wan's like, by showing mercy, you honored them and you gave them peace. Reva then looks at Obi-Wan and says, have I become Vader? And Obi-Wan says, no. Who you become now is up to you. Credits, season 2, Obi-Wan, Reva, they go save Jedis. That's my prediction.
No way.
Buddy cop drama.
No way. So
There's no season 2.
Yeah, I have a problem with that desert scene too, where Obi-Wan shows up and they're calling for him because Reva's wearing all black, and that sand is flat as all hell, and they're all just out there, like maybe 40 feet from their home, like calling out for him. Like you can see for miles, and you can't see the black spot walking up, like Reva holding a kid, just walking up to them. So I had an issue with that, but pulling the pin out of what I wanted to post up earlier, I think she had that realization that it was Anakin's kid, because she kept having that flashback to Anakin about to, stab her, and she didn't want to be that same person doing that to his kid. So I don't know. I honestly don't know if she knows that it's Anakin's kid or not, or maybe she thinks it's Obi-Wan's kid, or who knows. I just feel like they didn't give enough reasoning to why it would be either one of their kids.
Yeah, this was admittedly probably my least favorite part of the episode. Where I'm just like, ugh, like I just didn't like the way that it kind of turned out. I just felt like it was very like, okay, like we saw where this was going.
Yeah, I didn't really like the whole Reva on Tatooine thing. It felt rushed. It felt like they just needed to have some sort of closing to her story. I also didn't understand why Luke was running alongside her, above her, like, stop moving and she won't see you. Like, I don't know.
I think my biggest issue with the whole scene was that Obi-Wan could sense that Luke fell and hit his head from halfway across the galaxy, but couldn't find him in like a 1 mile radius of their house.
He was unconscious. He couldn't sense anymore. He's unconscious.
He sensed him go unconscious.
Yeah.
He's like, where is he? It's like, didn't you just sense it from halfway across the galaxy?
He's unconscious, bro. You can't sense something that's unconscious.
Why do you say it like it's unconscious?
Unconscious. Who's cautious?
Now I'm confused.
Unconscious.
Unconscious.
Yeah. Hey,
Welcome
put it in
to
the comment
Kenobi
section.
Cast.
Let us know how to pronounce unconscious.
Just a bunch of idiots.
So we get this moment where it's like Reva's like burying her lightsaber in the desert. Obi-Wan, I assume, brings her back to his cave, and they have talks of what they can do in the future, and Buddy Cop Obi-Wan Season 2 next summer, I'm calling it. But anyway, from there we go to Mustafar, where Vader is talking to someone who I didn't think we would hear from at all in this entire season, and that's Palpatine. And Vader's
somehow Palpatine returned.
Vader has basically said, we've sent probes, they're searching for Kenobi across the galaxy, and Palpatine goes, perhaps your feelings for your old master have left you weakened. If your past cannot be overcome, you're pretty much gonna just be a failure. And Vader goes, Kenobi means nothing to me, I serve only you, my master. And Vader is a lying piece of shit at this moment, because from this moment on, he's like, come join me, we'll overthrow the galaxy, we'll overthrow the Emperor. Whether it's like Starkiller, whether it's Luke, he's constantly just trying to get rid of Palpatine, which is just fascinating to me.
Yeah, one callback too, when he was standing over Obi-Wan in that pile of rubble, he called him master, which I thought was kind of cool. He was like, I don't remember what he said exactly, but I just know that he referenced him as master, and I was like, oh shit.
Then we jump to Alderaan, and Leia is back home. She's getting dressed in her iconic white-on-white look, and this time she's wearing her holster, which her mom and dad don't seem to be concerned about at all. And they're like, well, if you're going to keep getting kidnapped for the rest of your life, you might need some weapons. She's waiting for the arrival of a ship. She talks to Bail Organa, and she's like, you said there were many ways to lead. If we're going to do this, we're going to need to change some things. And Bail Organa says, well, let's change them together. And then the ship doors open. Lola and Obi-Wan come off the ship, and Leia is more excited to see Lola than Obi-Wan, which was kind of surprising to me. And Obi-Wan's like, oh, I couldn't separate a princess from her droid. And
It's true. I didn't realize that.
I think she did that on
excited.
purpose. She was being a little bit snarky to be funny.
okay. Obi-Wan walks up to Bail, and he's like, hey, we're all done. If you ever need my help, you know where to find me. And Bail goes, well, let's hope that day never comes. Obi-Wan approaches Leia to say goodbye, and he goes, I did know your parents. And he says, Princess Organa, you are wise, discerning, kind-hearted. These are qualities of your mother, but you are also compassionate, fearless, and forthright. And these are gifts from your father, both of whom were exceptional people who bore an exceptional daughter. I wish I could tell you more. Ooh.
Just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Anakin.
This was a really good kind of, I guess, I don't want to say send off, but like reason why Princess Leia is asking for Obi-Wan's help in the beginning of the 4th episode. She's just saying, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, because she clearly has a memory of him helping back during this time. So he even made a reference to where he's like, you ever need help from an old man that's doing nothing but sitting in a cave? Call me.
Yeah, I thought this was a really good send-off, and, it was one of those things that when Reva and Obi-Wan were standing in the desert, I was like, are we gonna see Obi-Wan and Leia one last time? And when it happened, I was like, oh, I just hope it doesn't do anything to kind of like, I don't know, piss off the internet, so all we hear is just people complaining about how it broke canon, but like, I really felt like it was kind of it was a cool scene of how they closed it off.
I think it was a good ending, and I don't expect to see any more Kenobi.
So,
Okay.
refresh my memory, but Leia doesn't really see Obi-Wan again in A New Hope, right? Because while Luke and Han are saving her, he's fighting Darth.
That's the last time she sees him is when he's fighting Vader, because they all see him get struck down.
She didn't seem to care.
Maybe there's something that happens in season 2 where they get in a fight.
There is no season 2, Brian. Drop it!
I would go to Vegas, and I'm going to put a bet
You
down.
know what? Here's a good idea for season 2. How about we show, 8 years later, and Leia needs Obi-Wan's help once again, so she sends, a message to him using, some sort of droid. That's not Lola, but, a new one that she has. And then he finds Obi-Wan, and then Obi-Wan enlists the help of Luke, who's actually Leia's brother, as it turns out. But you won't find that until the next movie after that. And then they basically have to fight Darth and destroy a giant space station called the Death Star. I think that would be a really cool season 2.
So episode 4 is basically season 2.
Yeah.
Season 3 is Empire, and season 4 is
There you
or
go.
season 3. Yeah, whatever.
There you go.
No, there's only a season 2 because
Force Ghost, bro.
He's not back in
Force Ghosts.
3 or 4.
It's all part of the
There
Force
it is.
Ghosts.
Force Ghosts. Here's one thing.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so there's a moment in Rebels where the characters find Obi-Wan in the deserts of Tatooine, and Maul is hunting down Obi-Wan. And I have a feeling, and
Spoilers, bro.
I mean, it's spoiler territory, but there's a moment coming up when the show comes to an end right now, what we're about to talk about, where Obi-Wan's packing up all of his stuff in his house, right? And he's packing up everything, and he's basically kind of like clearing out his house. That moment makes me believe that like Obi-Wan's adventures are not over. Right? We assume, because of the first movie, that he's been spending his whole entire life just looking over Anakin. But we got 10 years. Like, 10 years for Obi-Wan to turn from what he looks like now to a gray old man.
8 years.
8, is it 8 years?
8
Yeah, I
years.
guess it's 18, right? Yeah, okay. So we got 8 years. Within those 8 years, we have enough room for a couple stories and a couple adventures. Plus... And Robbie, I want to jump back to what you were about to say, but like, let me just get to this. Obi-Wan goes and he says goodbye to Owen, and he goes like, hey, you were right. He doesn't need training. The only protection he needs is you and Beru. Owen says, do you want to meet Luke? And Obi-Wan approaches Luke, and he drops the iconic hello there. And Obi-Wan then rides back to his cave, and we see the Force ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn, who says, Obi-Wan, it took you long enough. And Obi-Wan basically is like, motherfucker, where were you the entire time I've been calling you? No, he's like, I thought you would never come. And Qui-Gon goes, I've always been here, Obi-Wan. You were just not ready to see it. Come on, we've got a ways to go. I have to assume that, number one, based off just the popularity of this show, of how insanely popular it is. I was reading something that like the first episode has outperformed every show that's ever been on Disney Plus. So much so that Disney also debuted Miss Marvel during this same time period. And Miss Marvel debuted on the same night as Obi-Wan and is now considered the worst performing Disney property on Disney Plus in Disney history.
That's out already?
Yeah, the first episode only got 77, or I think it's like 77 or it's 700, some ridiculously low number in the thousands of views the first night. And they're like, oh my God, what happened? And they're like, well, you put it up against Kenobi. Like, what do you expect?
I had no idea it was out.
I think Disney is like, oh man, we've got a great property on our hands. And I think that the director did a great job with the ending of this, where they're like, hey, he cleared up his house, he's packing things up, he met Qui-Gon, and Qui-Gon is like, hey man, you got your Force powers back, we got some work to do, let's do some stuff. And granted, you guys might be right, I'm not saying that I know anything better than you guys, we might not get a season 2, but I'm in the camp that says, do it. And I'll self-fund it. I can maybe throw like $20.
Do it. I
$20.
My favorite comment you made
maybe
so far is
send
that
it to Disney. We'll see what happens.
Disney's sitting on Star Wars like, oh yeah, I think we might have some here. Yeah, like a 45-year-old franchise.
Yeah.
They just, has always been successful.
After the last
Might have
3
some here,
movies,
guys.
they're like, what the fuck did we buy?
Yeah. Man. My point I was going to make about your Force Ghost here, Brian. I'm sure you guys are both aware how the end of Return of the Jedi, it shows the Force Ghost of Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Anakin. And they replace Anakin with Hayden Christensen.
Mm-hmm.
And so that caused like issues because it's like all of the Force Ghosts you saw were pretty much as Luke saw them last. And then for them all of a sudden to like show a young Anakin, but like Obi-Wan's not young, Yoda's not younger, like that was an issue that a lot of people had when they replaced that.
And Qui-Gon
So it's
now is like when he died. Like, that's
somehow
what it's
Qui-Gon aged further as a Force Ghost.
like. Yeah.
I'm really glad they brought back Liam Neeson's though. And I keep saying Neeson's because of freaking Key and Peele.
Could you imagine the outrage if they would have just recasted Qui-Gon?
Just like somebody else.
Yeah, just some random like.
What if it was like? What if it was like Samuel Jackson?
Everyone's like, who is this
playing
random
Qui-Gon?
Force Ghost?
Oh my god, it was Mace Windu. No. That was Qui-Gon Jinn.
Do you guys feel like the Qui-Gon payoff was worth it in the end?
No, but they had to do it.
What do you mean?
I mean, like, it would have been cool to see a little bit more of that, but they had to at least show him once. There was too many scenes of him trying to talk to Qui-Gon and not getting a response.
Well, if you really think about it, majority of the time we see these Force Ghosts is typically at the end of the movies, after the hero has already done something that to win, and then they're sitting there just kind of like, oh yeah, you did so good. We were always here. You just couldn't see us. Now you're ready to see us because you won. Like, it just, I don't know. The whole Qui-Gon thing, I was excited to see him, and I guess that's the way, a right way to do it, because how else would he have been interjected in during the Vader fight? Then I feel like that would have took away from that scene. So it's like, maybe when he was under the pile of rubble.
The only thing that I think would have been kind of a little more, and it's kind of like in between what both of you are saying. Like, I liked what we got, but the only thing that I think would have been kind of cool was like a moment where he's like, I failed you, Master. Like, I tried my best. And for Qui-Gon just to like maybe have like a cliffhanger where he's like, hey, they're not the only two. Like, hope remains, or like a new hope is here, or something like that.
Gives
and
him
like
a wink.
Yeah, alluding to like Luke and Leia. Like, hey,
Little
like if you
Force
didn't
Ghost
know
wink.
by now, like the Force is also with them. Like there's still
See, I
hope.
like
No
that
way.
idea, but I wish it would have been like, I failed you, Master. And Qui-Gon's like, yeah, you did, bitch.
No way.
Time
He
for
would
your
have been like,
lashings.
I feel like Obi-Wan should have been like, you were wrong. You were wrong this entire time. The only thing that kid was good for was pod racing.
No, he brought balance to the Force.
He's like, I failed you, Master. And he's like, yeah, you're right. He's like, clearly everybody else can survive from a stomach wound, and you just couldn't patch me together.
One thing that I really enjoyed too, that just going back to the fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan, it was just a great lightsaber fight. Because one thing that I was always concerned about is if it would be a terrible, like, because that one they did in Revenge of the Sith was just so damn good. And I was always concerned, like, with if they were going to actually fight each other, if it was going to be garbage. Because, you know, some of the lightsaber fights we've seen in the newer 3 movies, Bryant, have been garbage. And I just sent you both a video to further prove my point.
What we're seeing is the lightsaber fights from the prequels on TikTok, and then we're getting oh, come on, my man. We're getting the Death Star fight between Rey and Kylo, which I think out of the 3 movies is hands down the best lightsaber fight of that trilogy. No, of the trilogy.
Oh,
of
the
those,
trilogy? Well,
yeah, those 3.
That's not really fair, because, like, in the first one, what's that movie
We don't
called?
get a lightsaber fight in the first one. The
No,
first
we
one,
do.
we get that
Kylo
stupid,
with
the kid who should have died in the second movie.
oh my god, what's his name? Finn
Finn
and Rey going back and forth, which it was interesting because, like, I wasn't sure going into that movie who the main character was going to be, whether it was going to be Finn or Rey, especially when Finn picked up the lightsaber too in that movie. But yeah, that just wasn't good.
No. And then the second one, you get that kind of cool lightsaber fight in the Red Room with
Yeah, that was probably the only cool part.
Snoke.
Snoke
then-
was such a joke, man. God, that was so...
And then you don't even get a lightsaber fight with Palpatine and Rey at the end. Like and for me, like, I admit, like, hey man, it doesn't hold up to like a Mustafar or anything like that. But like, just the idea that they're fighting on a fallen Death Star and the waves are crashing around, it's just such an epic scene that I'm like, okay, that's cool.
I mean, a cool background, yeah.
Yeah. Better than Obi-Wan versus Vader New Hope.
You're comparing 1970... 1977?
Actually, I think we should have another podcast episode
77.
where we rank the lightsaber fights. Like, we each, like, basically we give ourselves a week, we rank what we think are like the top 5 lightsaber fights, and basically just break them down. I think
that'd be cool.
that'd be a good topic for another
Yeah,
episode.
that'd be fun.
So, closing thoughts. My question for you guys is, where does this show land overall Star Wars universe? Does this break into your top 3, or does this kind of fall below that?
Number 2.
Number 2?
So what does that make your top 3 now?
Revenge of the Sith, Kenobi, Rogue One.
I am very excited for you to watch Clone Wars. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I've never considered it, so I'm excited too.
Well, the reason I'll say that, and then we'll jump into Robbie's, is because if we're talking overall Star Wars universe, like including like TV shows and stuff, Star Wars Clone Wars is my number 1. Like, I think it's one of the best Star Wars properties that they've ever made. Like, from beginning to, like, the beginning of the show, obviously, like, you're getting introduced to the characters, but by the final season, it's such a cool story of where they take that. Number 2 for me is obviously Obi-Wan, where we're at right now, and then number 1 is definitely Rogue One. So I'm kind of with you on there, but Clone Wars.
Oh, good.
is
That means
definitely
the
my
9th
number 1.
movie got dropped for you.
Oh yeah. And so did
good,
Empire
good,
Strikes
good.
Back, which is how telling of how good, this Obi-Wan show was.
So, this doesn't change my top 3.
Okay.
Obi-Wan's definitely below them. Really, the only thing that I thought they did right with this series was Vader. I was so happy to see him just be that badass that you've almost heard about, but haven't actually seen. I feel like they just really did such a great job with Vader. Everything else, I mean, just with the crappy chase scenes, the story plots, some of it just didn't make sense. I didn't like what they did with the Grand Inquisitor, like, just the way he looked and everything. Like, I felt like it was poor costume design. Reva just really didn't make sense by the end of it. I mean, she was in there to kind of help the story go along, but other than that, she wasn't really... we don't ever, as far as we know now, see her again. We might, maybe at some point, but I just feel like there was too much stuff that was thrown in there just because. And really the only thing I think they did justice with is Vader and the discussions between Vader and Obi-Wan. Other than that, there's no way it would top Rogue One, Empire, or Revenge of the Sith for me.
So I'm curious, do you think Disney made the right choice in doing this as a TV series instead of a movie?
I do. I think doing it as a TV series, it's less risky than doing it as a movie, because when you do something as a movie, you expect a very, very good storyline, whereas TV shows, you can kind of go, okay, it's a TV show, whatever, it's not that big of a deal, and typically budgets for TV shows are less than movies, because I think the budget for this was like $90 million. It's still a lot compared to some movies that get that, but I think some Star Wars movies get more than that for budgeting, so yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it.
I think that's very telling for me of why it would be my number 2 now, is because Vader was enough. Robbie. The Vader scenes was enough to put it up to number 2 for me.
Guys,
Interesting.
We've reached the end. The end is near.
That was quick, man. I will tell you that. I was so excited for this series when it came out, and I've definitely enjoyed it along the way. I'm happy that they did a lot of connection of bridges between the 3rd movie and the 4th movie, so I think they did a good job. Like I said, not my top 3, but I'd probably maybe put it at number 4, maybe number 5.
Can I tell you guys something really silly?
Good. What's up?
So, leading up to the announcement of this show, a year ago, they kind of hinted that they were going to be doing this, or they were like, yeah, we're working on it, but then, it got told. I remember telling my wife that I just need to live long enough to see this Obi-Wan Kenobi show.
Because I was like, what to do with the rest of your life?
Well, yeah, and then I'm like, I haven't told anybody listening to this, but I was talking to you guys earlier. I came down with COVID last weekend before the most recent episode, and I was like, man, this universe has a very fucked up sense of humor. It's going to kill me before I can see the final episode.
Yeah. Could you imagine? That would be the worst.
It would be so bad, but no, I'm feeling way better.
Good.
But now with Obi-Wan Kenobi being over, I'm just like, oh man, I feel fulfilled. Yes, I would love to see a season 2, but the way they ended it, I'm good. I'm just like, all right, let's go to a different universe in Star Wars, because too much happens on Tatooine for one planet.
Ugh, so much Tatooine.
You know what I want to see? Other than the coughing, I'd like to see General Grievous collecting his lightsabers from the fallen Jedi that he takes them from.
I'm trying to think. I think we get to see Grievous. Yeah, you get to see Grievous in Clone Wars. So that's a great segue, right? So now that Kenobi Cast is over, Scruffy Nerf Herders, we're going to be moving on to a brand new series. Kenobi Cast is done, and we're going to be moving on to Clone Cast.
Kenobi Cast is dead.
Yes, just like Anakin. I almost said Vader, just like Anakin is dead. But Clone Cast, episode 1 will be next week. We're going to be diving into the Clone Wars movie, and then we're going to be proceeding to go through a couple episodes at a time of the first season, and then jumping into a new show after that. But I'm really excited for you guys to experience Clone Wars, because you're such big fans of the prequels, and we get these new stories that, as a fan growing up of the prequels, I've always wanted to see more of Mace Windu. I've always wanted to see more of General Grievous, of Anakin. We get introduced to his Padawan of Ahsoka. We get to see Obi-Wan and Anakin fighting battles in the Clone Wars. We get introduced to clone troopers. And I'm really excited to go down this journey with you guys of getting to see, your thoughts and kind of reliving these original stories with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited too. Like I said, I've seen a little bit of the Clone Wars animated series just through my kids watching it randomly. But never really watching it in a certain order or anything like that. So definitely excited to dive into this, because I know that a lot of things, especially like in Mandalorian and Boba Fett and everything, tied to that animated series. So it'll be nice to finally fully understand Ahsoka and all that, and all the people. Unconscious.
And hopefully I didn't talk it up too much. And hopefully we don't get through the Clone Wars and you guys are like, why are we watching this?
This is the worst. This is number 1 for you, Brian? This was terrible. Oh my God.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I'm very excited. And I appreciate everybody who's checked out Kenobi Cast. And if there's going to be season 2, obviously we'll be jumping back into Kenobi Cast along with every future Star Wars property that will be coming out. We'll have something surrounding it. But thank you guys so much for listening, so much for supporting the podcast. Until next time, my name is Bryant.
My name is Robbie. As always, may the Force be with you. And I think we should all end with Brendan.
one last time.
And I'm Brendan, and just for you.
Oh, wait, hold on. Goodbye there.